I loved her more than she knew. It began on a Thursday, under the indifferent glow of a city sunset, when the world was bustling as usual, and yet, for me, time seemed to slow. There she was, standing at the corner of Main and 6th, a canvas tote slung over her shoulder, her gaze fixed on the horizon as if she were waiting for something more than just the next bus. In that fleeting moment, I realized the city had never seemed so alive. The everyday chorus of traffic and hurried footsteps faded behind the quiet certainty that something extraordinary was about to begin. Her name was Evelyn. I learned it a week later, after days spent finding reasons to pass by that corner. Some mornings, I'd buy coffee I didn't need, hoping for a chance encounter. Other times, I'd invent errands, my heart thrumming with anticipation, just to catch the way sunlight danced in her hair. At first, our exchanges were brief, simple nods, polite smiles, the unspoken language of strangers. But gradually, those small moments stitched themselves into a tapestry of familiarity. One rainy afternoon, the city's rhythm slowed. I found her inside a bookstore, her umbrella dripping quietly by her feet, her fingers tracing the spines of well-loved novels. I summoned the courage to speak, offering a comment about the weather, but she countered with a smile that felt like a secret only I was meant to keep. We talked about books, her love for poetry, my obsession with history, and in those conversations, I discovered the way her laughter could soften even the hardest days. We began to meet often, sometimes by accident, sometimes by intention. We explored the city together, finding beauty in forgotten alleys and quiet parks. There was a magic to those early days, a sense that time belonged to us alone. I memorized the curve of her lips when she spoke, the way her eyes sparkled when she described her dreams. She told me about her childhood in the countryside, the summers spent chasing fireflies, the songs her mother used to sing. I listened, collecting her stories like rare treasures, wishing I could offer her the world in return. As autumn painted the city in gold and crimson, our friendship deepened. We shared secrets beneath the faded light of street lamps, confessing hopes and fears we'd never spoken aloud. She told me about her longing to travel, to see the northern lights, to write a novel one day. I told her about my fears, of being ordinary, of losing the people I loved, of never saying the things that mattered. In her presence, I felt understood in a way I never had before, as if she saw not just who I was, but who I could become. But love, I learned, is often quieter than we expect. It's not always grand gestures or passionate declarations. Sometimes, it's the silent acts, the way she'd remember my favorite song and hum it softly when she thought I wasn't listening, or the warmth of her hand in mine on cold nights. I tried to show her, in 1,000 small ways, how much she meant to me. I brought her coffee on long study nights, left notes in her favorite books, and listened when she needed to talk. Yet, despite it all, I wondered if she truly knew the depth of my feelings. One winter evening, as snow drifted past the window, we sat together in her tiny apartment, sharing a meal we'd cooked together. The city outside was hushed, blanketed in white, and the world felt impossibly close. She looked at me then, her eyes searching, as if she, too, was holding back words that longed to be spoken. Sometimes, I wanted to tell her everything, to confess that I loved her more than she could ever know, that she was the melody in every song, the color in every gray morning. But fear held me back. I worried about changing what we had, about losing the friendship that had become the center of my world. So I loved her quietly, fiercely, hoping that she could feel it in the way I looked at her, in the space I tried to make for her dreams. Life, though, has a way of moving forward, sometimes too quickly. One day, she received an offer to study abroad, a dream she had whispered to me under starlit skies. She was torn, uncertain, afraid to leave the life she knew. I encouraged her, even as my heart trembled. I told her to chase her dreams, to see the world, to write her stories. I promised I'd be here, cheering her on from afar. Before she left, we spent one last evening together, walking along the river as the city lights shimmered on the water. She was quiet, thoughtful, and I could sense the weight of the coming goodbye. I wanted to tell her then, to let the words spill out and bridge the distance that was growing between us. But instead, I squeezed her hand and promised her she'd always have someone waiting for her, no matter how far she roamed. The months that followed were filled with letters and calls, postcards from distant cities, late-night messages sharing stories of new adventures. I watched her grow, her confidence blossoming with each new place she discovered. I missed her desperately, but I was proud, too, proud of the courage she'd found, proud of the life she was building. Through it all, my love for her never wavered. It lived quietly in the spaces between words, in the longing that colored every sunrise. When she found new friends, new passions, I cheered for her, even as a quiet ache settled in my chest. I realized then that loving someone means wanting their happiness, even if it takes them far from you. Years passed, the city changed and so did I. I built a life, found new routines, made new friends. But no one ever filled the space she left behind. Sometimes, I'd walk by the old bookstore, half expecting to see her there, her hair caught in the light, her eyes bright with possibility. I wondered if she ever thought of me, if she knew how much she was still a part of my everyday. Then, one spring evening, a letter arrived, her handwriting, familiar and beloved. She wrote of her adventures, the people she'd met, the stories she'd gathered. She wrote of homesickness and longing, of the comfort she found in memories of our city, our friendship. At the end, she wrote, "I hope you know how much you meant to me, how you made me braver, kinder, more myself. I hope you know I loved you, even if I never found the words." I sat there, the letter trembling in my hands, tears blurring the ink. All those years, I had loved her more than she knew, quietly, steadfastly, believing it was enough to simply be near her, to support her dreams. And perhaps, in her own way, she had loved me, too, enough to let me go, enough to remember. Love, I realized, isn't always about grand declarations or perfect timing. Sometimes, it's about the quiet presence, the shared laughter, the unwavering support. It's about loving someone enough to set them free, trusting that the bond you share can withstand time and distance. Looking back, I see now that our story was not one of missed opportunities or regret. It was a story of courage, the courage to love without expectation, to celebrate another's happiness, to find beauty in the journey, even if it leads you apart. The memories we created, the moments we shared, remain with me still, a quiet testament to a love that was deeper than words could ever express. So, if you've ever loved someone more than they knew, if you've ever held back your feelings out of fear or circumstance, know this: love is never wasted. It shapes us, challenges us, makes us better. It lingers in the spaces between, in the quiet moments, in the memories that stay with us long after the world has moved on. Evelyn's story and mine is not unique. It is a story repeated in 1,000 cities, whispered in 1,000 hearts, the story of loving deeply, quietly, fiercely, even if the world never knows. And maybe, just maybe, that is the greatest kind of love there is. Wherever she is now, whether beneath northern lights or in the pages of her own novel, I know she carries a piece of my heart with her. And I, in turn, carry her kindness, her laughter, her courage. In this way, our love endures, unspoken, perhaps, but as real and enduring as the city that first brought us together. So, if you find yourself standing at the corner of longing and hope, wondering whether to speak, to act, to love, remember that sometimes, the greatest stories are written not in declarations, but in the quiet devotion of everyday moments. Love bravely, love deeply, even if the world never knows. Because in the end, it is the love we give, quiet, steadfast, unmeasured, that shapes who we are and who we become.